I am Emily Zamboric. I took Spanish during a summer course during July 2020, and I had 3 conversations using TalkAbroad.
So my name is Mia McNair. I'm a third-year student at the University of Chicago, and I used TalkAbroad for a summer intensive elementary Spanish class I took. And the class wasn't for my major or anything, but I was interested in learning the language because I'm intending to study abroad next year in Mexico. And so I wanted to know a bit of the language before I went. And I had 4 talk abroad conversations during the duration of the course. And I was able to talk to people from Peru, Ecuador, and Costa Rica and Colombia. They were 15-minute conversations, 4 15-minute conversations.
My professor had us Zoom with other students that were in the class with us and just have simple conversations back and forth, rereading our notes to make everything fluent and kind of seamlessly go together. She also had us do speaking tests with her as well, so she could correct us and sort of guide us so we sound a little bit better when we're speaking in Spanish.
With classmates, we both had like the book exercises, and we had like vocabulary in front of us, and like it was easy if you forgot something just to look at it. But in a conversation, you can't really just like go to the dictionary if you forget anything. So you have to I had to figure out other ways of how to say what I wanted to say if I forgot a certain word or something like that.
I was always nervous. We had 30-minute conversations. So I always thought like, oh, I'm not going to have enough, to talk about, or I don't know what to bring up. In the beginning, I felt having Talk Abroad was too much at one time just because we were learning so much in such a condensed amount of time.
I was like very nervous the first time because I just didn't know what to expect, like speaking to a stranger.
Our professor had us do these reflections where we wrote down how we felt about the conversation in general. And the third conversation, which was our final conversation, she asked, what really helped you progress through the course? And I told her I noticed a major difference. I was getting help from classmates, my professor, and most importantly, the Talk Abroad students. They gave me tips and tricks on how to speak in their language and be able to carry on a conversation without being nervous or being timid or anything. So it was a really great experience. It helped me a lot. I don't think I could have did Spanish without it. In the Talk Abroad conversation, they were able to solely speak Spanish the entire time. And that helps a lot because it pushes you to really think and use your mind to rework yourself backwards and think like, okay, I know these words, I know how I'm supposed to be talking right now. So let's just do it. And there's no barriers. There's no language barriers. And that was really fun to do.
I think there was a lot of progress. During my first conversation, I made a lot of errors with like agreements, such as like the number and like using the right gender of certain words, but I made like a lot less mistakes in those areas during my last conversation. And also during my first conversation, I forgot like some vocabulary, and I was trying hard to like stick to the questions I prepared. But during my last conversation, I felt a lot more comfortable like deviating from the questions I prepared and talking like about something else if that's where the conversation had led. I also think I improved my fluency because I practice a lot speaking with classmates, but having like an actual conversation and not just book exercises, it helped me like think a lot faster in the moment. In terms of confidence, I felt more confident I felt more confident knowing that like I could speak and communicate effectively with a native speaker versus someone who's just in my class and studying the same things that I am.
And I learned more than just the language. I learned more a little bit about their culture as well. And that's very important to me to be learning another language because I want to get the full aspect of that country and the language itself. I'm going to community college and I'm going to a radiology program, but I think it is most important to learn the Spanish language because of the community I live in. There's a lot of Hispanic speaking people, and I don't want a language barrier between me and the other person when I'm working in the community or the hospital that I also am a student at right now.
I'm definitely more interested in taking language courses after doing Talk Abroad. Like I'm planning on taking Spanish again in the fall, and I just mostly really liked it because it's one thing to like talk with your classmates, but it feels like more genuine, and I feel more accomplished being able to talk to other people because they're not in your class every day and they haven't been studying the same things that you have, but you're able to talk to them. So it's more of a reflection on how useful the language will be in real life.
Hi, welcome to this Talk Abroad workshop. We're thankful that you're joining us today. My name's Todd. I'm the president of Talk Abroad. This workshop is focusing on building confidence for students by providing access to native speakers. Talk Abroad provides one-on-one conversation practice with trained native speakers, and we're going to be unpacking what that can do for student confidence and how to build that engagement and that level of interaction in class with Talk Abroad. This is the fourth in a series of 7 workshops. The first 4 workshops have all been unpacking themes related to Talk Abroad and how you can challenge or improve your curriculum by implementing Talk Abroad conversations. The next 3 sessions will all be focused on implementation. So if you hear things here that you want to try out, make sure to tune in and see those last 3. If you do miss any of them, that's no problem. They'll all be available on our YouTube channel from here on. Well, without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to our co-hosts for today, Daniel Trigo from Michigan State University and Dr. Inbal Mazar from Drake University. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, and welcome to Workshop 4. Today we are going to be looking at building confidence through using Talk Abroad conversations. My name is Daniel Trigo, and I am at Michigan State University, and I work with digital media and have taught Spanish for many years here.
My name is Inbal Mazar, and I teach at Drake University, and I teach Spanish as well.
Awesome. Cool. So today we are going to look at something I think that's really important and maybe counterintuitive, especially when you talk to students. This idea of students having conversations with native speakers and the fact that we are going to claim, obviously as the professors, that this will help your confidence. Inbal, in your experience, how do students take that, especially before that first conversation? Do they see this as a confidence booster?
Well, so confidence is a big part of my classes, and I use that word very often with my students, saying that I really want them to use this outside of class once they graduate in their careers, professional life. So for me in my classes, I integrate the word confidence a lot, but still that's not necessarily the first experience is not, they're not feeling that it's necessarily about confidence. They're a little bit nervous, but the outcome is always better, increased confidence in my case.
Awesome. Yeah. So we usually do kind of a survey right after the first conversation. Then we do kind of like a mid-semester evaluation and then a post-semester one too. And it is probably across the board, happens almost every single time, where after the first one, it's like, I don't know. I don't think that went well. And then we do, in our context, we have 5 conversations, and the students go back and I have them listen to the first conversation again and then comment like, hey, what's increased? And I think almost all of the students are like, yeah, like using Talk Abroad, meeting with these native speakers in this context has in fact helped my confidence in speaking Spanish. And I think speaking is probably the key part there too.
Speaking and just being able to engage and flow and feel more comfortable. So I think the great thing about having 5 conversations on my end too is that they have that first one to listen to and that last one and compare how they felt and how they interacted. So it's true.
Yeah, so as always, I think we should take a look at what some people are saying. Obviously, we love it. We're going to talk about it this way. So let's check out and see what a couple of other professors have said.
sabes que lo que he notado más que nada en principio están súper nerviosos, ¿verdad? Para el primer TalkAbroad todo el mundo está súper nervioso, pero después muy pronto se dan cuenta que en realidad no tienen que temer nada y muy rápidamente se acostumbran y se relajan mucho más y suelen hablar más. Además saben que como es 1 a 1, no hay manera, no puede quedarse callado por 10 minutos de los 15, así que tiene que esforzarse, prepararse y hablar, que es lo que queremos. Pero en el salón de clase, cuando es un estudiante entre 28, no le da mucha oportunidad y muy fácilmente puede escaparse sin decir una palabra. Pues no durante todo el semestre, pero muchas semanas puede ir así sin hablar mucho.
So for me, I resonate with what she's saying, because if you have a class of 25, 28, right, you can put them in groups. Can you listen to your students individually? Can you provide feedback? Can you ensure that that student within the group is speaking as much as he or she can? You can't. But this, you know, she said various weeks can go by without a student speaking. And this can enhance that by ensuring that the student is actually getting the practice as well, and you have a recording of it to be able to, you know, go back and build on that.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we talk about motivation, sometimes we may assign either a positive or a negative connotation to it, but really, like here, like in the classical sense of motivation, it's like I have to speak to someone. Like I can't wait. Like in this class, like you might have, how many students are in your classes typically?
Between 16 to 22.
All right, so like you ask a question to the class and there's 22 of us. Like how many people actually get to speak in any given time?
Not everyone. It's not. People have different styles, but I don't like calling on individuals because that can make them more nervous, also long term, right? So I want them to feel like they can shine and not be called on. But people have different styles. But you know, if the same person is volunteering all the time, then 22 people out of 23 people. I mean, you know, then that one person isn't participating as much, or, you know, the rest are not. So
yeah, and especially with different personalities, like you'll have a few students who want to talk all the time, and that's great. But then it's really hard to integrate the ones who might be a little bit more reserved.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Mariana tells us, like, hey, like all of a sudden, I mean, basically, you're forced into it.
Yeah.
Like you can't just sit back and let someone else do that. Like you are then kind of responsible or in charge of this conversation, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And again, as she said, and I think this kind of just reiterates, like at first that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But as it goes on and you realize I can speak, I think like it almost like you have this motivation, but it builds momentum, right?
Which then increases their participation in class, Dania. That's what I'm seeing. That in class they're participating more because they've had the opportunity to listen to themselves speak out loud and see, well, this is not as bad as I thought it would be. This is not bad at all. I'll raise my hand in class. I'll feel more comfortable speaking in class.
Right. So, I mean, even just from the simple measure of time on task, right? The more that I speak, eventually I become more comfortable speaking.
Yeah.
And we know too in acquisition, like speaking is a skill.
Yeah.
So you might be able to read really well. You might be able to write really well. You might comprehend a lot.
Yeah.
But sometimes we see like that speaking is almost often its own little island.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if the language is in there, like, you know what's going on, you comprehend what's going on that it makes it so hard to speak.
Yeah, and I think we all have that student that writes beautifully, conjugates everything perfectly, and doesn't say a word in class, or isn't comfortable speaking. I think we've all had a student just like that, and then watching them develop and grow and pushing them to speak can be a challenge, but this is a tool that really can help us accomplish that.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with speaking, and we talk about fluency, kind of that intersection of speed and accuracy, right? So writing might be a little bit slowed down. Your brain just has to practice retrieving things in real time and making those connections. And the more you do it, the stronger that connection becomes.
Absolutely.
All right, let's check out another video.
I remember the first time I used it in my Spanish 1001 and then in my Spanish 1002. And I told my colleagues what I was doing. I see many eyebrows going, what? And how can you do that? You know, that's too much for the students. You know, there's like Spanish 1001, they won't be able to communicate. And I said, they are communicating. You know, they use a lot of gestures. They use a lot of, you know, their hands. They try to explain things. I know they are using a lot of the, you know, translators and dictionaries, but they are communicating. You know, that's the most important thing. They are speaking in the language, they are trying really hard, but at the same time, they are also trying to understand what the native speaker is saying. So that's what it was interesting to me. I knew it was not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a conversation, like a very fluid conversation, but I was not worried about that. You know, that was not what it was important to me.
All right, so any comments on that video?
Yeah, I using this at any level is useful. But the fun thing in what she's saying, using it as in an introductory level, I think you have the ability of giving them the confidence and faith in themselves of their own abilities from really early on to say, how do we communicate in this circumstance? And then which will then encourage them to try to use the language outside of the classroom as well. You know, if I realize that I can use gestures and I can, you know, if I can't say that I have a pet cat, then I'll be able to maybe figure out a way, right? So if we use it at a really introductory level as well and show people, you actually do speak Spanish. And I say this to my students early on. I say, you know, how many languages do you speak? And they say, one. I say, oh, you speak 2 languages. You're working toward building another language. And this provides them with the confidence to say, well, I had a conversation about my family, and I didn't do everything perfectly, but I did it.
Yeah. No, and I think the key takeaway from that video is I think there really is a distinction between speaking and communicating.
Yeah.
Right? So I can talk, and sometimes you see some of these like exercises like, oh, I'm just going to repeat this phrase, but it doesn't really have any meaning for me.
Yeah.
And so I think the motivating thing is not that students are just speaking, but they're speaking about what matters to them. And they're actually communicating and connecting with people.
100%.
So we have one more video, and I think we would be amiss to not have a student talk to us, right? Because again, this is like, hey, professor, TalkAbroad's great. Okay, yeah, why? Because professors say it's great. But ultimately, it comes down to students and their experience. So this is just one of many, many students here. But we are going to see what a student has to say.
My name is Cassidy, and I was studying French, and I was in the entry levels of French, and I believe I used TalkAbroad for like 2 different classes, and I believe that I had 5 conversations total. They were 15-minute conversations, and what I really liked about it was that I was able to find an option for some speakers that they had like a little star that said approved for beginners, and so that was really a relief for me when I was scheduling my first couple conversations, because it can be really intimidating. And then after the first one, I really got really comfortable with it, and it was actually a really fun way to learn. I think it pushed me a lot more especially because Spanish was in high school, but when you're not forced to practice speaking and conversations, the activities on paper can get really redundant, and it's also just like a lot easier to look up the answer for yourself when you're working on it. And so I just feel like a lot better. I feel like more prepared if I were actually to travel to a French-speaking country. even though haven't even learned that much French yet. I just think it teaches you how to improvise and use as much of the language as you do know. Even if you don't know that much, you can usually get your message across.
All right, cool. So
she went from being nervous about selecting the partner to, I needed a star to know that they were comfortable and that I would be comfortable speaking with introductory, to now when I go abroad and when I travel, I know that I can communicate. And that's what this is about.
Yeah. I remember when the stars by the beginner feature was implemented, and like my students flocked to them. Like, I can't imagine, like, I don't know if they get a higher commission or something. I don't know what's going on, but like that for them was a lifeline, especially that first one or two, like, oh, I'm a beginner. And even if I'm working with like intermediates, maybe even advanced level students, like, I'm going to start with someone, they're all approved for beginner.
I know, they can all do it well, but the little star helped, huh?
Yeah, the little star was really interesting. But again, that speaks to motivation and confidence.
And comfort, just feeling the comfort of knowing that the person would be able to help them if they got stuck, and then finishing a couple of conversations and saying, well, I can do this in a different country.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about the video that you just showed, that you just played, that the student had a transformation that is going to allow her to use this language outside of the classroom, because her confidence increased because of using this.
Yeah. And so we've talked a lot in teacher terms and acquisition, like why some things might be building in confidence. But I think even if we maybe even step back and take a look at some of like the actful, like I think of the can-do statements.
Yeah.
And I think of TalkAbroad, like the can-do activity, because students are like, yeah, there are moments where they're like, oh, I didn't say that right. I'm going to try this again differently. But like at the end of the day, like I can speak with someone.
About familiar topics, about my family, about this. Yeah. So I have the students actually look at those before and after, because I think that those are really useful to say. So in my courses, I have them do kind of just 3 points, like you said, beginning, middle, and end of the semester, and not in relation to TalkAbroad, just to say, what do you want to accomplish? Where are you now, and where do you want to get, and how are you going to get there, right? So when they look back through using TalkAbroad, they'll say, well, I checked this one off the list, from one conversation. So it's not having, if you have a really small to-do list, if wake up is on your to-do list, right, you feel accomplished. And so the students have something, have a conversation about my family. And they say, I did it. Yeah. Check that off.
Yeah, and I think if I were to summarize like how TalkAbroad builds confidence, that's it. It's like, I can do this. I can talk with someone, and that just translates to everything. Like there's even different motivation. Like, I'm not just filling out a worksheet. I mean, we've heard this before. Like I'm actually doing something, and I think it's hard, especially with language acquisition. It's such a daunting task, right? Like I'm going to learn a language. It's like, I'm never going to learn all the words. I'm never going to learn everything. So like, what are the like rites of passage? Like we talk about levels, but like, I think this is one of those rites of passage where it's like, I can talk with someone. Like there was a moment like where I couldn't, and then there's a marked moment where I could.
Yeah.
And I think that helps people to be able to even talk about their language learning experience. Like, I always love on like resume. It's like I speak Spanish, I speak French, and it's like, but like, what does that mean?
I know.
And like, who interprets that, and like what level? But it's like, I would love like I can converse with native speakers of this language. Like, ooh, that's a lot more descriptive and demonstrative of what you can do.
Yeah. So I asked my students specifically, would you put that you speak Spanish on your CV, or French or Japanese, or I asked them that, because I think that why are you learning this if you don't feel confident enough to actually use it, right? This is what I tell them. I said, just use it. Don't learn it to be able to be inside of a college classroom, you know, and never take it outside. There's so much value to learning language. And so going back to the can-do statements, you know, then there's some that say, I can have complex conversations, right? So my students in an advanced class, then they use this and they have a conversation about women's rights in Latin America, right? Or about just, you know, health issues. And they step away from that thinking, wow, I just spoke about a topic that is just as hard to speak about in my own native language. You know, that I had to think about, I had to be a step ahead of myself and think about what am I going to say? What words am I going to use? And I flowed. And when I see it in the advanced classes, they walk away from those conversations really proud of themselves. And and that being proud of yourself is a big tie to feeling more confident, right? It's tied in completely with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the scaffolding process. Like it can enrich the conversations you have in class because students have already been able to engage and test what they know and don't know outside of that. So when they come back to class, it's not like the first time they're engaging in some of these topics. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Honestly, it's one of my favorite things about being a language professor is seeing that the speaking growth in a student and the confidence of, of coming in and being able to write everything but not feeling confident enough to just open their mouth and hear their own voice in the language, to then seeing them 4 years later actually have a conversation about something that matters to them personally, that is advanced, that they would be able to have in their own language as well, in their initial language, in their native language, right? So in English and then to Spanish. So it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah. And I think we're gaining steam as we go along. So maybe some bits that we could throw in there later. I think we have to talk at least this year, especially about with the pandemic and the switch to remote learning. I think it's even more important than it's always been.
Yeah.
For students to be interacting one-on-one.
Yeah.
With speakers. I'm teaching on Zoom right now. You're teaching on Zoom right now, and there's some great things that it does, but I think the hardest thing is the forced turn-based speaking.
Yeah, and breakout groups also,
Yeah, like we can send them to breakout groups, but like when we're all together, it's hard to get conversation going.
Yeah.
And part of it is due to the context, the limitations of the technology. Like if I even start to hear another sound, like I stop because I
know everybody's looking to see when does the mic, the speaker box light up to know that someone's about to speak. Yeah, students are. Yes. Yeah. They refrain because of it. And so this one-on-one interaction, especially within language, is so key right now, right? Because you can sit through an entire math class and not speak. Mm-hmm. Sorry, math professors, but you could. But in this case, part of what you're working on is actually speaking. So if you are sitting through a class and not speaking, or going in a breakout group and not having any professor feedback on how you're doing because of it, right? Or it's the same person volunteering or whatever else. How meaningful is that, and how in context, and how, what happens at the end of each class? Does every student feel like they were able to speak and participate now? We have that challenge of ensuring that they do, and programs such as TalkAbroad can help us do that, because they're able to have that one-on-one interaction with someone. They're able to listen to how they're speaking. We're able to listen to how they're doing. We're able to provide feedback. We're able to meet with them and talk with them about how they're doing. And that's providing us a resource for us to be able to enhance our students' experience that is virtual right now. So it's very useful in that sense.
Yeah. So I think there are tons of ways to build confidence through TalkAbroad. Obviously, the way that we structure activities, but I think just the nature of the conversations and the time on task.
Yeah.
I think the student that we saw the video, she said, hey, I had 5 conversations at 15 minutes. It's not a ton, but it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How many classes would she have to attend to have that same amount of interaction? Especially maybe on Zoom or even in the physical classroom.
Yeah.
Right?
So 15 minutes of nonstop. I always go with the 30. I do the 30, and I love listening because so much develops over 30. Sometimes I use the 15 as well. But yeah, it's all, and it doesn't speak to our instruction abilities to say that, oh, well, the student won't get that amount of individual speaking. You're facilitating over 20 people in a room on the internet right now in some cases, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much that can be done. And in addition to that, we can do more.
Yeah. And even just the limitations with how much class time there is, right? So I think it's like, it's essentially like you're adding like another 5 or 6 weeks to the semester worth of input and interaction, which I think is really, really key for students.
On task.
Yeah. And again, that's that motivation. I know so many people that are like, oh yeah, I studied this language in high school or in college. I'm like, okay, what can you do?
Yeah, we all know. I can say hello and ask where the bathroom is.
Very important things.
Right. I joke that, so this is not to say anything about my French teacher in high school because it was a great class, but I can say that I'm 18, that I like to play soccer, and that that I can order a lemonade, right? From high school.
So you can only travel during the summer months.
But I'm not that into soccer, and I'm definitely not 18 anymore, right? So things change over time, but this making it meaningful, making it in context, it allows the person to use the language throughout the entire life and not when they're 18 and are ordering lemonade and playing soccer, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like this talk abroad. It's like we're helping set up that context so that when you do travel, like you don't have to like take this pre-scripted context with you and try and force that into different places.
No, you're confident to ask for directions. You're confident to have an interaction at a cafe. You're confident to make friends and keep developing your language skills because this doesn't end when class ends. And increasing confidence is the only way to really ensure that they will continue using the language professionally, personally, academically in grad school and beyond, right? The only way to ensure is that they leave the classroom, they graduate, and they feel confident to use the language.
I think there's nothing I can add to that. Perfect. So thank you, Iqbal, for joining me for this workshop, and stay tuned for more.
Hi, I'm Daniel Mateus, and I'm the TalkAbroad Director of Support.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for being here with us today. It's really nice to have you here. We would like to talk a little about your position and the work you're doing at TalkAbroad. So to start, please let us know a little bit more about you, about your history at TalkAbroad and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, sure. I started as a conversation partner back in early 2015. In September of that year, there was a job offer for the support team, and I became a team member. And a year later, I became the director of the team.
Okay, awesome. So that means that you're working with a team of people. Can you talk us a little bit more about your team of work?
Sure. My teamwork is Gabriela Cañas, Gabi, and Andres Cañas. They are brothers, and they both live in Ecuador.
Okay, and let us know a little bit more about the work that you and your team are doing at TalkAbroad. What do you do inside of the company, you and your team?
I am in charge of the technical support department, which means that I'm responsible of ensure a high quality support externally for clients. internally for conversation partners and manage a healthy support team. That is basically what I do. And my team is in charge to provide support to our clients and to the partners. And yeah, that's basically what it is.
Okay, awesome. So basically you and your team are the ones that are helping students or professors or partners when they need help with technical issues. So you are the ones that answer the little chat box that we have on the website, right?
Yeah, we are in charge of the chat box, and we also in charge of the email feature. The chat has an email feature, so yeah, we answer all the questions from there.
Okay, perfect, great. So Daniel, you were saying that you are in charge of ensuring a high quality support for our users, partners, students, professors, and everybody. How do you do that? How do you ensure that high quality support for them?
Well, this is one of our big focuses on the team. We guarantee that there will be at least one support team member available if conversations are happening, which means that every student will be able to reach out to us using the real-time chat feature or the email feature if problems arise during the conversations. Also, we are online through the day almost until midnight. So all our customers will be able to use our features or the chat and the email, and they will be answered in a timely manner.
I can imagine that as part of that, you are also working on making sure that partners attend to their conversations and that they have, like technically speaking, all they need. How do you ensure that? How do you make sure that partners actually attend to all their conversations?
Well, we work with around 140 partners right now, and sometimes partners have problems. We get that. We treat that proactively, finding a sub-partner beforehand the schedule time, so the student will be able to talk with a partner if the original one is having problems. And if that doesn't work, we will just wait for the student to provide this option directly to them. Also, we provide the option to reschedule for free for another day. So yeah, the idea is we can guarantee that every single student can complete their conversation at the scheduled time. And yeah.
Okay, great. Daniel, can you explain a little bit how you and your team apply the TalkAbroad ethic of enjoying healthy relationships that are characterized by respect, commitment, and cultural sensitivity inside TalkAbroad? How does that work for the support team?
Yeah, we applied by being respectful and committed with the partners and the students. We understand that we work daily with different cultures, so we aim to provide the best service according to the customer needs. In this case, we offer specific solutions for the students or for the partners. And yeah, that is part of our job, just to understand what is happening on the other side and provide the best solution for them.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for your time, for sharing a little bit about the support team with everybody that's watching this workshop today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carolina, for having me today. And yeah, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Mon père est en maintenant et s'est réveillé à 3 ou 4 heures in le matin et je ne me réveille pas à 4 je me réveille à 8 heures. Donc, je veux vivre avec une colocataire, se réveille Huito.
Bueno. ¿Y tú? ¿Qué hiciste, Rebe?
Fui a las montañas con mi familia y visitamos parques, acampamos
Correcto.
y escalamos montañas y nadamos, sí.
Correcto. Oh, ¿en las playas o ríos? ¿Lago?
No, muy rápido.
Ríos, como los...
Sí. Lo siento.
Tranquila.
Río,
Río.
no río, sí.
Génial.
Est-ce que tu as changé de maison ou tu es aussi resté dans la même maison?
J'ai changé la maison, je pense que 2 fois dans ma vie.
Ok.
Ma famille a changé la maison 4 fois.
Ok, ouais, c'est beaucoup.
Oui, j'ai
Ouais.
une sœur, alors elle changeait la vie une fois, more than me,
Plus que moi.
plus que moi.
Et tu as quel âge?
Désolée.
Tu as quel âge?
Oh, j'ai 19 ans.
D'accord. Tu es à l'université alors?
Je suis à l'université, University of Washington.
Prefiero actividades en la ciudad.
¿Por qué?
Me gusta comer en los restaurantes o caminar en el centro. Sí.
¿El centro de Chicago es turístico?
Sí, muchos turistas visitan a Chicago, especialmente en el verano. Sí, me gusta comprar la ropa al centro comercial, pero tengo manejar mucho tiempo para ir al centro comercial.
Oh, ¿por qué mucho tiempo?
Porque yo pienso el mejor centro comercial es muy lo siento. No es cerca de mi casa.
Ah, perfecto. El centro comercial está lejos de tu casa.
Sí.
Perfecto, muy bien, Mía.